All right, hello. This is a panel idea that we kind of brainstormed a little bit to introduce everyone here to some various community content providers. And I had some questions that I thought would help them explain how they develop that content and how it's relevant to our community as a whole. But a couple of housekeeping items for me personally. Has anyone seen my mug? Someone here is walking around the mug with my name on it. I really want it back. Anyway, so I'm going to let everyone on the panel here introduce themselves, what community content they develop, kind of just tell us a little bit about what that is, and then I have some questions to go after that. So we can start with the script team.
Me first? Okay. Hi, I'm Janae Cram. I am with these two lovely people. We maintain and develop and do everything for Script.io. It's an online Racco magazine where we publish two articles written by community members every month as well as release a newsletter. And I am the basically community outreach person for that and also developer for the site.
Hi, I'm Kyle. Kyle Weems, and I'm with them on Script. They do most of the hard work, which is really great for me, and I largely work as the editor, so I get the articles, I spell check the articles mostly, and then I send it back in a second round and a third round, and then eventually I hit publish. So that's the easy job, honestly, but it makes me look good when I get to put editor under my name, so that's me.
Hello, my name is Erica Quessenberry with Learning Team Script. We live in Bellingham, Washington, which is north of Seattle. I do more of the marketing side of things, the newsletter. I do a roundup of community blog posts and new packages and festivals. I liaise with festival leaders to help advertise, I guess, help them push the festivals and back to the community. So anything community related that should be shared with the broader community, that's what I try to find to publish out.
Hello, I'm Callum White. I am from London. I do Opera Coffee, which is a YouTube series. We go live every Friday with my colleague Margin, and we have coffee and chat about what's happened in the week. We're also doing some other stuff, like longer form content that we might talk about.
And I'm Nils. I do the Unique Owner, which is an attempt to give you an insight into what's going on in the HQ. So I have a couple of colleagues every Monday and talk about what it's like to work at the HQ and what their roles are and what they're doing. Give you an idea of, that we're just completely ordinary people like you. Yep.
And I'm Bob. I don't actually provide any community content, but I do provide some content in content production. And so I'm just really interested to find out how, in this niche group, these people come together to do this. And so one of my first questions is, so why did you start the platform that you chose to start? And what were your inspirations and motivations from the start? Was there anything that sparked that?
This is something that we meant to actually put on our about page probably 3 years ago with our creation story. And we've been around for 4 years now. That's how we've done it. So we used to work together at an agency, and we started the first 2 years iteration of this festival actually. And we were sitting around one day thinking after the first year, right? After the first year of the festival, we're like, that was awesome. We had a great turnout, maybe about 100 people. How do we get those people to come back next year? How do we get more to come back? Because it's so hard to. It's really hard to create that energy and that vibe, I guess, to keep people interested throughout the year, especially in the US because we're so big. Yeah. So Kyle and I were just kind of chatting one day, and we're like, hey, what if we start some kind of newsletter, some kind of magazine that we can interject the festival stuff in to kind of keep people's attention year round? So Script was born, I think. idea and turned it around in about a month. And we've been going ever since then. It's been a rocky journey, but it's been I think a fulfilling one. To get to know community members along the way.
I just did it for my portfolio. But the other part, that was good. But we don't even run the festival anymore, so that part went out of our hands. It's actually been great. We benefit a lot from all the writing that our authors do. So it's been wonderful to get them in front of people.
As the person who mainly reaches out and tries to find people to write for us, probably one of my favorite parts about Script is I get to ask people to write about things that I want to know about. I really want to know how something works, and so I get to seek out experts, or in some cases novices that at least have time to experiment when I don't, to write articles for us, and then I get to learn about it and kind of write on someone else's coattails for that. But so yeah, I really enjoy that part of it. I get to meet a lot of people and learn a lot of new things that I want to know specifically.
So primarily created to address a very specific challenge, keeping energy, but now you're on episode or issue, sorry, you're on issue number
42, we think.
okay. So it keeps going. It keeps going.
So I think, as Bob said, Script addressing a specific need. Umber Coffee is slightly different, and there's almost two parts to this question: the why we started it and the why we do it are quite different things. There used to be a thing called You Hangout, which is on Friday with Warren Buckley. It was great. It was kind of longer episodes of an hour-ish, and someone would come on and they'd demo something. And we really missed that. And my colleague and I, Marcin, we were struggling to keep up with everything that was happening in the Embraco community. So we were like, hey, surely some other people are feeling the same. Let's just, we were always talking ourselves about, what's going on, but maybe we could just share that. So we sat down and we decided to just live stream that and then get a guest on if it's relevant, and maybe do these demos. But the idea being is this shorter, more easily digestible piece of content. And then the reason we kept doing it is, I think, a lot to do with the engagement we get from people for it. So we did some fantastic live Umber Coffees at Code Garden, which just gave us a huge buzz. We really like how it's kind of become embraced by the community, that people watch it and find out what else has been going on, and then it sparks people to discuss and talk about it. And, yeah, it's kind of just do it for the love of the community. We would share with each other what was normally going on in the community anyway, so why not just do it publicly?
As I said, with the Unicorner, the idea was also to surface we have a value of being open, and as we've grown, I guess people are used to corporations not being particularly nice. So some people started to be afraid that as Umbraco grew, that we would not stick to our values. So I felt it important to make it obvious that even though we're growing, we're still the same. And then I also thought it's very important that people get to know some of the employees that are not the usual suspects. So if you actually look at the Unicorner, it's never the leadership that's on. It's always the people who are actually doing work. Just kidding. And I think that's important because also sometimes people are like, it's the only people doing core at Umbraco is Shannon and Stefan, because those are the people always out presenting. But it doesn't mean that there's not a ton of other people at the HQ, and I think it's a nice way for them to be known by the community, and they are also, some of them wants to talk, but they are kind of afraid of being in front of the community, just like everybody else. So it's a nice way for them to also get some airtime and experience that people are really nice in the comments of the videos and on Twitter. So that's it.
So Niels, you did kind of touch upon my next question. You talked about the goals, and so when you you all started, you probably had a very specific set of goals that you guys have touched on as well, or you all have touched on as well. Have those goals changed, and how do you see those goals changing and evolving with the project? We'll paint that this way. Niels, you're pretty much, yours is fairly new.
Yeah, it's new. I think done 6 or 7. The goals haven't changed yet. I'm still trying to figure out the format. I would say that what I find fascinating is how much I look forward to doing it. It's like I'm like, ooh, it's Monday. I get to do Unicorn. I'm always excited. One of the things on the Unicorn is I ask the employees to come up with what we call friendly and hungry. That's 2 other values we have. So they should give a friendly tip of either using Umbraco or interacting with Umbraco, because Anders in sales or Paul running finances might have a hard time giving you a great tip of Umbraco or the Umbraco back office, so they can come up with other ways to interact. But the other thing is hungry, where I asked them, if you were in my chair, what would they do? And it's just the best way. I mean, got the coolest employees. They come up with some really great ideas, and sometimes, because we're just doing it live, we hit record, and then it's just one take. Sometimes I'm like, yikes.
It just got real.
Yeah, you're right, now we have to do it, which is kind of funny. Yeah.
So I said about Martin and I just do this because we enjoy it. We would talk about it anyway, but it has grown slightly. The goal being we want to make sure that we can kind of capture everything that's happened in a week and deliver that. And we are very agile in the way we do it, so we'll often approach people to join us like the day before, because you've done something cool this week and we'd like you to come and talk about it. So the goal being, like, it needs to be fresh. We don't want to be just recycling stuff that's happened many weeks ago. That said, we've been doing this nearly a year now, and our goals are shifting because as we've grown, we feel like we're kind of doing the same thing every week sometimes. So we are looking to expand into some long-form content and doing these pre-recorded episodes with how-tos, tutorials, and whatever else. So the goal is kind of that Umber Coffee becomes this hub of, you want to get the news or you want to get some information. It's where you go if you want to watch a community video. We want to get people from all different parts of the community. For a long time, I got a bit frustrated because we were just having a bunch of white English dudes every week. And so like we want people from all over the world. We want different backgrounds. We don't necessarily want tech-focused sessions. We just want anything that's relevant to anyone in the environmental community. So it's shifted, but I think the core value stays the same. We just want to deliver the information via video in a friendly way, super informal, nothing super low-tech, not well-prepared or anything, just get out there, do it.
So yeah, for us, it definitely changed. Scripts was created in the same year that Festival exited our hands. So obviously that was a connected purpose. We've, over time, tried to find the wider Umbraco community. Callum spoke to, English white dudes. There's a lot of really good English white dudes, like my boss, like me. He's not in here. Who are great writers and great thinkers and have great tutorials, and we love to have them on. Some of our best writers are among that group, but there's a lot of people that don't match that, and we want to help them have more visibility. A lot of people that have written for us have become speakers at a number of conferences, and I think that's become part of our new energy now, is to hear more voices, because more voices, different types, have more to share to the community that we may not have got from just one sample. And that's been a big part for me, is seeing that.
So if anyone knows how to contact the Mumbai meetup, we're having a really hard time getting a hold of them, and would love some people from India to write for us. But really, I think it's true that our goals have changed, but in some ways have stayed the same. We really advertise the festivals. We're in contact with most of the festival organizers. They, in fact, this year, I'd say more of them reached out to us, than we had to reach out to them to try to get their content and approached us with pre-written content for our newsletter before we even had to go, hey, your festival's coming up, can we advertise it for you? So it's been like a really positive outreach for our initial goal, and it's really extended on from that. We get a lot of comments on posts, both lifestyle and tech posts in the community, and it's been really great to also boost authors that have never written anything before, even a blog post, and then come and write for Script and to really cheer them on.
I would also say a goal for me, selfish reasons maybe, but I would like the community to come to view us as a place that is willing to help them disseminate information too. So I would like to see more and more people think of us first and like, hey, I did this cool thing. Do you want to put it around the web section to get a little bit more visibility, or like, hey, we just had a meetup. Can I do a short? I'd love to have a meetup section on there where people after a meetup they could submit like kind of a summary of what went on at that meetup, so the rest of the community, the global community, can kind of get an idea of what each other are doing. So it's creating those connections to people, from the U.S. to India to Africa, if we can find any of them, to back to Europe, just creating that. Oh, I ran across in Medium the other day. I ran across the Racco workers in Thailand. Content that might get them on board.
Content is everywhere. So, I'm loving selfishly my cards because you all have dovetailed into the next topic of conversation. So, of the three content groups up here, they all have very different approaches to that delivery and very different lead times in that delivery as well. So, if each of you could share a little bit of like the typical approach to an issue or an episode, because you have just touched on that a little bit as well, but like what kind of prep, how the organization, just kind of the big picture, 30,000 foot, here's what an edition looks like.
Maybe I can start. So our live Friday Upper Coffee episodes, was it you I was speaking to about this yesterday? Someone said, they seem pretty well prepared, whatever. 10 minutes before the episode, we all sit there and Martin and I will just bash our heads together, come up with some notes, and be like, yeah, this is what happened this week. And Martin and I are both quite active on Twitter. We have our feelers out for content all the time, but we should, but we don't like keep a list. It comes to 10 minutes or half an hour before the episode, we're already prepared, and we'll make a list of stuff, and that's it. I said we invite our guest the day before, often, because we just want the most relevant person. We've had script authors come on before because their post has come out on a Tuesday, and we've gone, yep, no, that was good, or even just from someone that did a tweet the day before saying, hey, here's a thing I've been working on. That's our preparation. As we get into these bigger, longer form pieces, of course, we're going to have to, prepare a bit better. But that's kind of the
But are you excited about that? Are you terrified by that?
Definitely excited about that. It's stuff that, like, Martin and I always have conversations. How can we do this the best way? Such simple things. We bounce ideas off each other, and I think there's value in us putting those out there too, in kind of longer form discussions, or even more of a walkthrough on how we would personally achieve something. So it's something we've wanted to do for a really long time. But it's going to be a little bit more work. And I think it's got a different target audience as well. The goal of the Friday live Umber Coffees is that it's spontaneous and it's just a really informal chat, whereas these more structured pieces, they do need a little bit more work in them, and we want to do that. So, yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm afraid of myself because I actually have a calendar with when I slots for when
I'm having such a problem with this whole meal structure thing.
Yeah, I've grown up. No, it's more because they are so difficult to get hold of. They're all so busy. No. So I invite the people saying, hey, at this date or this week, I would love to have you on. For instance, the next topic is two of our interns. What's it like to be interning in Bravo? There's people in support. And there's always like shitloads of stuff from product. but I have to shuffle around, so it's not always teaching people because there's so much more going on in running the Umbraco project. Um, so first I told the two interns, hey, this week could you find a time that suits you? And then I sent them a document outlining, what's the unicorn, what are you supposed to do, and it's very little things they're supposed to do. And there's an FAQ based on questions that other people who've been on have asked, like, do I need to prepare? I'm like, no. Is there something I'm not allowed to say? No. Things like that. And then, on the day, I go down in our wonderful Campari room and I set up the gear like 10 minutes before, and then they come in. And then every now and then I remember to lock the door to our toilet because it's right next to the meeting room, and it has a fan that goes into the mics, and it will continue to run for 15 minutes after people are done shitting. So if I forget that, then we have to postpone the recording. But that's the most difficult thing about doing the unicorn, I would say.
So in the email that goes out to your guests, does it tell them that they're supposed to go into the basement and find an item?
Yes. Yeah. So that's the other thing. Stories from the basement, because the other thing I like is also just there's a history in Umbraco, and there's a lot of people who don't know. Even the employees don't know all the weird things that's gone on throughout the years. So it's all in a basement that's now cleaned up. Yeah, it's so wrong. But now it's all structured, and then people can go down there and find something, and then every now and then I know what it is.
Did Per get his train back?
I wrote to him, he hadn't responded. He was so busy. If anybody wants a vintage model train that used to be Pierce from his childhood, he hasn't returned my message, so I think it's worth a lot.
Per, if you're out there, get in touch. Get your choo-choo back.
We've got two different products, and so we've got kind of two different ways to go about it. There's the newsletter, which is pretty much Erica's baby, and she probably can speak better than that. And then there's the magazine itself, which has 2 articles a month, and honestly, Janae does most of the acquisitions and outreach. So I just prefacing that.
Unlike Callum, sorry, we actually pin articles to our Slack channel so that we know to put them in the newsletter. Then anything that hasn't been included in the last newsletter stays pinned to the channel so that we know that we still have it. That's about as organized as it gets.
We do have a Trello board, so we aren't totally disorganized, but yeah,
We
it's
also-
thrown together.
We also have a Trello board for article ideas. It's not actually like I maintain the Trello board, but it's not our Trello board. It's a community-driven Trello board where anyone can come onto the board, post that they have an idea, not necessarily one that they want to write about, but maybe something they want to see written about, that they're curious about, and then someone can claim that article and say that they want to write about it, and I'll be in contact with them and tell them what month we have available. Usually it's next month. We've had some awesome times where we're actually booked 6 months ahead. That happened once last year, and that was incredible. But sometimes, yeah, we're often scrambling month to month. It really depends on the time of year and how many people are on vacation. And so most of it is seeking out members in the community that have something that they want to say, and then getting that into a curated article format that's right for script. Timetable? We plan like generally about a month out, but at the moment we're booked about 3 months out, so it's pretty good. And
Just speak, Kyle.
what is this? What is this? Oh.
Are you like an old couple?
Awkward now. Young couple. What I was trying to help. So that was part of the question was kind of about the time preparation, I think, in a way of that. And in addition to desperately trying to get offers ahead of time, Janae's actually set up a system where we remind them. Because if you say, I'll write for you in 6 months, and then 5.5 months later when you're on holiday we may.
It's a Gmail plugin.
Right, reminds you soon. So I believe about 4 weeks out, we send the friendly, hey, you're an author, I hope you remember. And and it gives the timetables. 2 weeks out, we prefer to have the first draft. 1 week out, we prefer to have the final draft. In practice, sometimes we get it the day before, and that's white knuckling it, but we've gotten better at talking to people ahead of time for that. So sadly, because it's written and because it's edited, we don't have the advantage that accounting does of just sort of, throwing something from the head 30 minutes ahead of time most of the time. And then there's the newsletter.
I'd also say on the articles, sometimes it's hard to plan too far in advance because we also want to deliver timely information as well. So if it's an article that's relevant for like a release that just came out, sometimes we will reshuffle authors so we can slot it in sooner as well. We don't want you guys to miss out. Sorry, you all to miss out on that.
Otherwise, there's like when GDPR came out this year, we had an article that we bumped forward 3 months because it was relevant for the exact time that the legislature was going through for that. So.
The newsletter happens a little bit last minute. I don't really like that. I would rather it well planned out. But like Umber Coffee, we are doing roundups on the latest content out there that Umbrella community members are pushing. So we can't put that out too. I can't do that too soon. I also do a roundup of meetups, the next meetups coming up for the month as well. So that has to be scraped. I'd rather that's something
Sometimes they get added 15 minutes after the newsletter's gone out.
Glasgow usually gets added the day after.
Yeah.
It needs to be.
All right, so the next question, we on that one, right? So everyone's kind of alluded to the different technologies that they use to create their content and distribute it. But I'd be curious to know if there's pieces that you haven't mentioned. Like I'm curious of how Unicorner is actually created. You mentioned that you turn on the camera and it's a one take. What tools are you using?
It's super low tech. So one of the other purposes is I wanted to show people internally, hey, just fucking do it. Don't turn everything into projects. Things doesn't have to be polished. Experiment. So I'm using my iPhone and a random employee's iPhone. And then there's an app called Switcher Studio that I just run off the an iPad because I can switch between the cameras so it's not too boring, and I can bring in screenshots, videos, things like that. Then the sound was too bad in the beginning. Then we found out, hey, we had some Laravel mics in the basement. So I was like, oh, cool, we'll throw them in the mix. But the idea was really to just, the content was what was important. And then, as we go along, get inspired of how the format should actually be, and then you can use some tools. But when we create a product where we say it's about the content, it's less about the tool, then we should also keep that mindset in the way we produce things. And yeah, so super low tech. I think I've spent $150, $200 on equipment. Mostly because we have a busy basement full of cool gear that we apparently bought 10 years ago. But, yeah.
Just like Neil said, Umbra Coffee is very low tech, and it's almost the point because we're able to turn up at an event and spontaneously just do something. There's times where I'm traveling or I've been in a meetup and we'll kind of do something the day after, and it's possible because we don't have a big setup, we don't have fancy mics or anything. That said, it's something we've explored as well. I was talking with Bob and a few others yesterday. We just use the standard YouTube, like Google Hangouts live streaming, which has its benefits. So everyone can just dial in. You don't need any specialist software. It's super accessible then for our guests. They don't need fancy setups. We just need a headset, a computer, and an internet connection. You can screen share on it, that sort of thing. We've looked into using a more professional setup, like an actual streaming tool like OBS, and also getting some fancier mics and better webcams and stuff. But again, it kind of, the glossier it is, it kind of detracts from the beauty of it. We just want it to be about the content. We don't have a fancy intro video, I think Janae suggested having a piece of paper that we hold up. Was it Kyle? Yeah, just hold up a piece of paper and stuff like, hey, it's Umber Coffee. And we chuck that away. There's a beauty in that. It's supposed to be super, super simple. I think that's one of our advantages, really. We can spin stuff up so quickly.
I know a super sharp looking webcast that doesn't exist anymore, so it's not about sizzle.
Well, I mean, Script's a little different because it's not video, right? So I can kind of give you the run through. Script is run on Embraco, if you were wondering. It's on the cloud. We put it on the cloud in super early beta of the cloud. So we've had some hiccups along the way, but it runs really smoothly now. Can you just set me up a new cloud repository? Because I'm gonna migrate. Okay, cool. Yeah. Package-wise, we're using Articulate to manage the articles themselves. We're using the grid, so we're using Skybird's grid data for typed models. We use nested content for our around the web section. But it's not like a super intensive site. There's a lot of stuff that we want to do with it, so we'll probably have more packages in the future, but that's primarily like the core code that's in there. Newsletter-wise, we use MailChimp. We use Gmail for its automatic email updates. Yeah, that's pretty much how tech we are.
That was exactly what I was hoping for, though, because I think that's a missing piece. Your group represents a different way to distribute.
Oh, we have a Slack channel. Oh, and a Trello board. Yes, 2 Trello boards. An internal, our ideas for what we'd love to do with Script in the future, or hey, there's this bug on the website that we haven't fixed in 2 years. Maybe we should go get to that. And then also article ideas.
I think a really good point here is that every single one of us mentioned tools that are like publicly available.
Oh yeah.
Generally well known. No one's doing anything fancy, but just using what we have. So it's not like anyone else. If you want to get out there and write a blog or start a YouTube series or a podcast or anything, like you can just do it. It all exists. No one's here is doing anything hugely technical or fancy.
That dovetails into my next question. So we've talked about a lot of freely available public tools because we're providing this content as cost effectively as possible. Because guess what? I don't think anybody's monetized here. So the next question is, how do you manage that expense aspect? What's the end game? Because you're on YouTube. There could be monetization possibilities, Patreons, whatever. So I'd be interested to see how do you manage the finances, because there are costs in any of these ventures.
So, of course, not running video. We don't have to worry about expensive hosting in Embraco Cloud. It's been hosting us for free for years, and that's been wonderful. But there is time put into it, and that's really where it costs the most. And also mailing costs. We send out stuff. Erica sends out stuff at authors every time we send it out, and especially since a lot of our authors are in Europe, it's not cheap postage. No matter how flat you try to iron the package down, they always catch on and charge more. And we, of course, I believe that, of course, open source is important, but when you have content creators, they deserve compensation for the time. And so we're trying to create a model where we pay them at least a token amount for that. And we use Patreon. And we've been very fortunate. Yields was is one of our big funders on Patreon. We're really grateful for that kind of support. And anyone in the community can see our links there. That goes to recouping time and money, Erica in particular, again, for those costs that come with sending stuff out, etc. Our domain name is pricey because it's a .io, so comparatively per year. There's a lot of little incidents that add up over time. And then, of course, we're now beginning to pay authors, which is a really great experience. Do we want to add any more to that? That's us. But otherwise, it's been a free enterprise for years. This is the first year we've had that. And again, it's voluntary. There's no payroll.
Yeah, but you mentioned the mailing costs, but you have swag that you put in those envelopes, so you had to fund that somehow.
Oh, yeah. So,
We were self-funded until this year, actually. We just launched the Patreon. So pretty much every year, the three of us decided, well, we're throwing $100 in the bucket or whatever and do what we could. It's them, even though we're going to start paying authors for that. But we're super excited. We have a little bit of money in the rest now that we can start doing more things.
I've got quite a lot to say on this topic. So, firstly, we're not funded. We don't monetize at all, and we're not in this to make money. We're doing this out of love for the community and love for what we do. Both Martin and I, are very, very fortunate that we work for a company that supports us to do this. So we do it in work hours. So our half-an-hour episode every Friday is done within office time. We blocked it out in our calendars. The company accepts that that's happening, and it's kind of not really negotiable, but because it does good for them as well. But yeah, we're really fortunate that that's the case. If we were contract developers or something, that would be a very different story, and it wouldn't be possible. That said, we also make a lot of merch, as you might be able to see. We have merchandise. We like to reward our speakers or guests. We have mugs. Every speaker gets an Umbra Coffee mug and a coaster to go with it, and they're awesome. Everyone loves them. Yeah, so please join us. We spent this year alone. We spent $500 on merch. We've got stickers, we've got coasters, we've got all sorts of stuff. We fund it ourselves. Again, it's out of love. Now, I have strong views on Patreon, and I support Script on Patreon. I love Script. That said, I personally, Martin agrees, we're kind of unsure about funding Umbra Coffee at all. We think that there's other ways of making it sustainable. We try to avoid shipping things, so like mugs are really expensive and difficult to ship, so we'll take a box with us to an event. We want stickers and stuff to give out at events, so we'll take them with us. We don't want to make a ton of stuff that we have to ship out. Some people we will have to ship stuff to, and we fund that. I guess from your point of view, Patreon helps fund all of that stuff. I think there's I don't know, the more people in the Embarking community that start funding on Patreon, the less the people that are kind of really relying on that maybe become valued. Like the second, yeah, it gets watered down. The second you've got 10 different creators in the community doing stuff, people have to pick and choose between who they want to back. I love that Scrift's on there, and I want to support them. I also support Unco and Dave, but like I don't know, if we have 20 people on there, people have to pick and choose. And we don't want to be like that.
I think the hope for that, because we talked about that as well when we were setting up Patreon and designing, is, and I mean, I personally also support Unco and stuff, but I know that the company I work for, Afroco, they do as well. And I think that the hope is that more corporations will patron people rather than that the individuals will do it, and that will help give back to the community from company standpoints to the individuals that then spend their own time giving to the community.
Yeah, so I know that you kind of got, or maybe Unco definitely, they call out specific companies that are active sponsors, and you mentioned that Niels is a big sponsor of Script as well. That's awesome. But I don't know, it's difficult. Money's always a difficult issue. No one likes talking about it, no one likes asking for it, but it's a factor in everything. So at some point, somewhere, someone's got to pay for something. Maybe companies are the best way to do that. I don't know.
Funding is tricky for anything, and really the main reasons we're doing it is to help pay back people that actually make our content for us, because we shouldn't expect them to work for free on our product. And a lot of authors have started turning it down now that there is an option. We won't fight them too hard on that, but it goes to show that there's still a lot of love there. When it comes to it, though, I'm in a couple other kind of artist-related communities, and Patreon is a model for all of them, and the joke that they make is the same $10 floating in a circle. And so I do understand how that's a real problem. Funding models would be great to have better ways to do it, but without a paywall, we're comfortable enough asking if people enjoy what they do, help us pay the authors, as opposed to ourselves. And if they can, please come and read it.
I also think you're really good at stating. I'm less thinking that I'm supporting a Script, more thinking I'm buying. You're really clear that this is what it costs, and this is our goals. hey, I would love to buy that. So like, I agree that I guess it was because it was in 1.5 weeks. There was free putting up Patreon pages. They were very unclear. They were just like, hey, could you help fund? I'm like, either take the credit, be cool, you do open source. It's all cool and fine, and then only do that, or else put a price sticker on whatever you're doing. Don't try to get both, which I love you don't. And the same here, because I mean, it can sometimes be maybe the same people who can be semi-aggressive when we say, hey, we can't release headless because we can't just make a CMS and then run a cloud service and then give hours of R&D work away for free and then somehow finance all this. Some things just cost money and that's fine. And I think the way you're using Patreon is super nice.
We do try to be really transparent with our Patreon. This goal covers our postage costs and our domain and all of this. This goal covers paying our authors. This goal would cover if we ever were to make it. When we had artists who drew banners for all of our articles. That's expensive and a lot of hard work. And she did it out of the good of her heart. And we would love to get that back again at some point and have art that goes with the articles that people write for us. So, but those are all clearly laid out as to like what the costs are for each of those things, and our goals are directly related to giving back the cost to those people rather than padding our own pockets. That's like our absolute max goal is if for some reason we were to make literally every other goal, we would be able to go drink some beers.
And I know this is a difficult question, and that's why I asked it, but I didn't explain why I was asking because I wanted to hear how you all handle it, and it was just as I expected. And I think it's important for the community to know that like stuff just doesn't happen. It takes money to make stuff happen. So whether it's Callan and Margin that are spending hundreds of dollars on swag out of the goodness of their heart, or folks managing a monthly publication and a newsletter and trying to pay the contributors, it's got to come from somewhere. And I think the last couple of questions on the panel, you'll see that it's definitely out of the passion, and we hope that you all will engage with us, and also we learn that you don't have to reinvent the wheel because there's shows you can be on and articles you can write and all this good stuff to kind of build.
If you want to raise something and don't have a blog, we're a great place for one-off articles for that, and we are happy to help anybody who has an idea flesh that out into a full article.
I have a question specifically for Niels in this one, because when I wrote this one, I had you in mind. So, out of all of these, Unicorner seems like it could possibly be the only one that has a limited run. So, like, when you're done with all the employees, what happens to Unicorner?
Then we hire some more. No, just kidding. But if you actually look at it, it would, it would, when I've had an employee on, it would take another 6 months for them to be on again at our current size. Probably 9 months with the growth we have right now, and we plan 6 weeks ahead internally in the company. So what's happening in 6 months, I'm sure it will be worth having people on again. So I'm gonna do Unicorner as long as I'm allowed to, and I have a really good employer. So I don't plan on stopping right now. Yeah.
Out of the three of them, that was the only one that I saw that could possibly be limited run.
The thing is, I see it completely different. Like, the Unicorner this is not the first time the Unicorner has been a thing. You had the Unicorner before, and it was more like updates from HQ, and it kind of happened whenever. It wasn't really on a schedule. You can recycle guests, you can do slightly different discussions and formats. It doesn't have to be like this. Is exactly what we're doing. I would like to say that the format we've got will keep going for a long time. We've done a year, we want to do a second one. But if it ever becomes dull or not no longer fresh, we'll change it and we'll adapt. We want to keep creating content. It's just whether, I don't know how we do that. I know in your case, Bob, you had various issues with YouTube, and podcast. So you and Kevin went off. You've done a podcast as well, and kind of adapted. The format works well. So I think we would look to do the same thing. I guess the same goes for Unicorn. If it's ever becoming stale or we need to change, we'll make one. We don't plan to stop.
I will be honest, we've had some ups and downs. We almost quit at year 2. We had too many authors in a row drop out at the last minute. We still have authors drop out at the last minute. It can be frustrating and disheartening, but I think for right now, we're a slow and steady growth trajectory. So again, as long as it's fun, as long as for me personally, as long as I see it creating value for the community, I'm in. If it's not creating value anymore, I don't see the point.
For me and Martin, we do this because we love it. So the day we stop loving it, the day we stop, we don't do it for the community. We're in it because we just want, to have fun.
Yeah, I'm sure that the audience at every Bracket conference gets tired of everyone saying how much they love the community and how unique it is, but we made it for partially selfish reasons, but really because we love this community. And then we kept doing it because we kept meeting new people that we then could hear more from and that we could put out there for other people, and then they become more popular than us and win awards. But we can then say we made them. If we ever got tired of this community, which I cannot imagine, then I guess we would either shutter the project or hand it off. But there's no end in sight because Baracco continues to be in a great place with great people, and I love, because we started with the American community as our initial target, how much more we're seeing people like this event here. So big shout out to all the people that made this happen. This has been really exciting to watch. We are experimenting with new formats. We're playing around with being on Instagram timeline, like short video and stuff like that, just to kind of keep it fresh for ourselves. So we're not just a magazine, just a newsletter, just kind of having fun with other ways to engage the community, but no end in sight to me, honestly.
So I was shopping this session around earlier in the week and was talking about the different content providers, and someone said, we're talking about Bravo videos, and someone said, I stumbled upon this really weird, they were in a castle, and I said, oh, the Abrakians! Oh yes, nothing is ever dead on the internet.
It was called the Umbragos. Yeah. Yeah. Don't drink and record. That's it. So do you want the story? Am I supposed to? Okay. Okay. So it was very early Umbrago days, back when we were 3, and we just hired our number 4, which was the amazing Paul Sterling, and we were a distributor company, remote company. We didn't have an office, and then we met at Code Garden, and then I thought it would be a great idea if we met not once a year, but twice a year. Then I found out what hotels and a temporary office conference space cost in Copenhagen. I was like, shit. Then I found out in Denmark we have so many castles. You won't believe it. It's like there's castles everywhere. And people use them for weddings, and nobody wants to get married in January. So I can't remember why. I think there was someone who told me that he had booked a castle in January. Then I called up a castle, and he said, yeah, sure, you can come. It was much cheaper for us to stay there and use the castle as our conference place than book hotels and office space in Copenhagen. So we were in a car driving up to this castle north of Copenhagen, and we looked at ourselves, and we were like, hey, we can't show up at a castle looking like this. So we went into isn't it called a thrift store, and we bought all the tweed we could find. We looked terrible.
You must seek out these videos.
We had so much fun. So we walked around this castle in tweed, desperately trying to look like barons, despite barons doesn't have castles. But that's another thing. And then at one point we got something to drink, and we were like, hey, we're this open source project, we're in a castle, we dressed in terrible clothes, we should make a fake soap opera. And for some reason, we thought it was a really good idea, not just to record it that evening, then edit it, and then put it on YouTube or something like that. I think we ended up making 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, so at one point,
Every time you hired somebody new, you
Yeah.
guys would audition.
yeah, they are terrible. My kids haven't seen this, thank God. But I remember once we were invited by Microsoft to a conference where we were supposed to be in a booth. And if anybody met the early Umbraco people, we were not the typical booth people. And we were one of 4 projects, and all the other ones sent their salespersons. We didn't have any salesperson. We were just a bunch of introverts. We're like, shit, we can't manage this. What are we gonna do? And then we found out we had this big screen. Then we just put on Umbracos on that big screen on repeat, and then there was just a sign saying, we're sitting over here if you want to chat with us. And it worked really well. People stopped and was like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, that was good times though. We should do it again.
Oh.
Oh yeah, in one of them, there's actually a bird that got shot. It was not a real bird. It was a stuffed bird. We call that. Yeah, and I transported that one. It was pretty big. It was a seagull. I transported that one in the train, having reserved the seat for the seagull. That was really awesome. So I can't watch it. Thank you so much for reminding me.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. All right. So the last question I have on my last card for everyone is: so we've talked about a little bit of the journey, how it's been established, and we've touched on this a little bit. But share some of your biggest challenges to date and how what the plan is to overcome, adapt, survive. The biggest challenges question.
Biggest I create better friendships with our USPs. I think the one thing, and I already mentioned this before, we do struggle for offers sometimes. Sometimes we don't. The other challenge is, for me, is just finding the time to hit our to-do list, which always seems to grow. Yeah, it's really hard to carve out time sometimes when you have a full daytime job. My boss isn't very nice. That's me. I'm my boss.
Yeah, on that real quick, fortunately I'm not the website developer, that's her, and I'm not the user experience person, that's her, so I mostly get to be in the meetings while they talk about a feature that 2 years now they've been talking about it, so that's always a challenge, because it's, largely us giving back to the community, not really compensating for the effort when you have day jobs. You don't always spend your hobby time afterwards making yet another website. And then authors, of course, are a challenge. Our authors are wonderful people, and like everyone in real life, sometimes they have conflicts. And up until now, most of them have been, freely given articles as opposed to compensated. And when they drop out at the last moment, it's understandable. Life comes up, but it sucks because we would prefer to always have 2 polished articles out every month. It looks good, makes us feel like we're actually doing a format, giving back. And when you have someone drop a week ahead of time, you usually think you have enough time to figure it out. But it's a bit of a scramble of making all your friends for the 5th article in a row or whatever. So that's exciting. And then, of course, finding new faces. We would like to see more people that don't look like me. I look great. I have a twin brother now, so there's already too much of me. And he's got a goatee, though, so he's the evil one. And so we keep trying to encourage people from underrepresented groups in the community to write for us and making me a bit the most nervous about putting themselves forward. So we keep trying to make new relationships. That said, regardless of what you look like, if you're here today and you think, I like Umbraco, I would like to write something that people saw and become famous and paid $50, we would love to help you do that. Especially for January, it's a horrible month to get authors because 24 ways every year, 24 days, whatever. 24 days every year stills all our authors in December and January. borrows and doesn't give back sometimes. Yeah, we do love them. We're big fans of their work. That's what inspired us actually, except for year round. And so, please come right for us. We're not desperate, but we're a little desperate.
You all have never missed an episode, correct? Or an issue?
We missed
Oh,
one
yeah,
issue, and that was the hardest thing. We had two authors bail on their commitment at the last moment. Names will not be named unless I've been given lots of drinks. And they had very good reasons. One had a family emergency, you know how it goes. And it just sucked not being able to hit publish. But it's only the once. We've every now and then had a one article issue, one this year even. But, fortunately we recovered. Life happens.
When that happens, usually, again, if we have a week, there's so many awesome people in the community, people who've written for us before, and sometimes people who are new, where we put out a tweet and we're like, hey, someone, and we usually have an article in our inbox in a couple days, and that's like a really good feeling that people come together to support us as much as we want to support everybody else.
So I think just summarize everything I wanted to say. Diversity, new faces. We want to keep it fresh. We don't want to keep it boring. That was our big worry up front. Also, just like, do people even care? Like, what would who even wants to watch? A few people talk about Racco, but it seems people do, and that's great. We've had the challenge of we've never missed an episode. We do one every single week. Doesn't matter what's happening, except for Christmas. Christmas is the one week we will take off, and March and I are both committed to that. Slackers, exactly. We just make it work. We'll always try and find a guest. There's been a couple times where we haven't had one, or one's pulled out very last minute. We had someone get confused with the time zone and just missed the episode. But yeah, those are kind of just general logistical things, and I think the workaround for me, the biggest challenge is everyone's in life, time, money, energy. We have so much stuff we want to do. We have jobs, lives. Archie's got a kid. It's difficult. If we had purely unlimited time and money, we would be doing, I think, some really good stuff. But more of us. Yeah. Great idea. Let's do that at Code Garden. Martin and I can broadcast the entire 3 days straight and not sleep.
There's another cool video out there that Niels has where they did a 24-hour coding session on MapMe.
That was me. That was Pierre.
Oh, I thought you were in
I
that one
wasn't involved in
too.
that at all. That was before Pierre was my friend. I gave him his life back. No, just kidding. Back to the question. The biggest challenge is keeping it short. So the idea with the Unicorner was it should be 7 to 12 minutes, not wasting people's time. It went really well the first 2 episodes. Then there was a episode we hired a creative director back in January, and we're working very close together on a new identity for Brago, which is going to be stunningly beautiful. It's amazing.
Hopefully orange.
And super excited about that one, and I think we spoke for almost half an hour. That was terrible. Way too long, way too boring. Yeah, keeping it short because people's time are precious, and the idea was you could just watch it on the commute. Yeah, and then remember to publish it Monday morning. That's the other thing. Yeah.
Very quickly, speaking of time, we also go for it should take as long as it takes to drink a cup of coffee to watch our episode. And that's kind of the point. It's 20 minutes. And we say that to guests. It needs to be a conversation. We're not here to present anything. It's just chat for 20 minutes. However, we did once have the wonderful Pete Duncanson on, and the episode ran for 50 minutes, and I had people messaging me after half an hour, like, you've been half an hour now. And it's like, yeah, we do. You just couldn't stop talking. We love you, Pete. Definitely keeping it short is key. People start to switch off after a while. The script articles are the perfect length. They're kind of like readable. but not too sure that there's no substance. There's always good code samples and whatever else. So yeah, I feel like the format we chose for a reason. It works for us. Same for Unicorn and then also Script. It's good size content.
Yeah, we aim for between 1,500 and 2,000 words. Every now and then, Matt Brailsford writes 4,000 plus words. But it's Matt Brailsford and his beard's mom, so I guess it ties in. But yeah, I mean, I think anyone that's reaching out to either video or written content with your own stuff, you should remember consumption rates and time that people have for work-related talk isn't long. Keep the attention, keep it going. I mean, if someone can successfully do a long format video on a rack, good on you. But I don't know how to keep it going.
Since we've been talking about time, I think I cranked us right to our hour. I would say that if you have questions, seek out these people individually and hopefully been given a glimpse into how you can join them and help build the community content. And thanks.
Yeah, what you could do was you could start by writing an article so good for Script that Callum thinks, hey, you should be on the Unicorn, or no, you should be on Umbra Coffee. And then I think this is so cool, so I have to hire you so you can get on the
You
Unicorn.
can talk to us about that anytime. Wait, speakers. But no, I want to thank Bob for hosting. Bob, you're always amazing.
Big cheer for Bob.